All right, we've got the teams for New Zealand against England, and the only changes in both 23-man squads are enforced through injury. The first test was an absolute belter. I'm minded to say it was the best game of the weekend last week. I mean, in terms of atmosphere and occasion and edge, the game that I witnessed at Loftus Versfeld between South Africa and Ireland was pretty special. But New Zealand and England, 1 point game, absolutely box office. Cannot wait for the second test in Auckland at Eden Park, where New Zealand have not lost to England in 30 years. That's the challenge for Steve Borthwick's men. Lots to talk about, and as ever, your comments down below. Please give the video a thumbs up and hit subscribe as well. I'm Tim, this is Egg Chasers, and let's have a look at that All Black side that are going to be taking on England. There you go. First thing to point out, Tyrell Lomax in that photo is obviously rubbing his hands, but because of the New Zealand kit, kind of looks like he's praying a little bit. Actually, do you know what? The kit is better when it's on them out on the pitch than in the photos, where it kind of looks like they're those Quakers, pilgrims from back in the day. But actually, when the collar's opened up a little bit, I quite like the stash. I think it's all right. It's not far off. Better than their last effort, but not perfect. Anyway, as for the team, yeah, one enforced change. TJ Perenara injured. Massive shame for him. He's worked so hard to get his way back, and he worked so hard on that mullet, and he's not going to be able to go out on the field. So it's Finlay Christie that gets to start with Cortez Ratima on debut, which is exciting, I guess, if you're a New Zealander. One thing I also want to point out, look at the replacements. Scott Robertson has fallen into the giving the replacements nicknames. Impact. Which, there you go. Slightly cringe. New Zealand, if you're a New Zealand fan, that's slightly cringe. It's up there with game changers, finishers, bomb squad. But there you go. I think that team was pretty good to me. Forecast, weather-wise, is good at the moment. There's an argument that wet weather, which you can get in Auckland at this time of year, of course, that would favour England. I'm not so sure that's the case. When you look at how England are trying to play, and also the front five that New Zealand have got, I'm not sure that's the advantage you'd think it was. Hopefully you can hear me all right. There's a lot of cars going by, and I'll tell you what, in Durban, there's a lot of guys that like to have that big exhaust. Those rude boy cars. So anyway, I'll crack on. Yeah, I wonder if people were anticipating some changes from Scott Robertson, but I quite like the fact he's gone with consistency from the off. He seems to already know what his favoured 23-man squad is, and I quite like that. And that's a bit of a departure from Fozzie, where it seems like there was a constant bit of chopping and changing and tinkering, and there was always a sense that he wasn't certain what his best team is. I quite like the conviction that Scott Robertson is showing. One question, and maybe you can tell me in the comments if you're a New Zealander, who's going to lead the haka? Who's in charge? Tyrell Lomax leading the haka? I don't know. Can't imagine Finlay Christie would do the job that TJ Perenara could do. But on Finlay Christie for a second, it's a tough gig for any scrum half to follow one of the greatest players in his position in the history of the sport. And New Zealand have been spoilt by having Iran Smith for the last decade. And now they're making that transition to life without Iran Smith. And Finlay Christie's never going to measure up. But I actually think he's decent. Every time I've seen him, I think he's just a solid, very competent scrum half. And actually, just let me give you an example. So a lot of people have been talking about great performance by Sevu Reece, which it was last week, and the bone-crunching hit he put on by George Furbank, which it was a massive shot. But Sevu Reece was only able to put that massive shot on George Furbank because the box kick from Finlay Christie was so good. So interesting. When you look at the team, front row and the replacements is where New Zealand have an edge over England. On the fullback, Stephen Perifetta did nothing wrong really, so kind of understandable that he's continued. Beauden Barrett was very good off the bench, but he's continuing on the bench. And I think, so where my mind is now in terms of international rugby is, it's not as it was. And to be fair, I'm in South Africa, and it's probably South Africa that have changed the mindset on this one. The people that start aren't first choice, and the people that finish aren't second choice in their position. you do particular roles for the team. And I think Beauden Barrett is one of those guys that did a brilliant role for his team last week. And I think, again, South Africa showed, and I think other countries are starting to follow suit, sometimes having your best players on the pitch at the end of a game is more advantageous to having your best players on the pitch at the start of a game. And having a guy like Beauden Barrett on the pitch when small margins are there and when you need cool heads in the pressure cooker, I think it works really well. Defence is one area New Zealand can and will want to improve. I thought they were a little bit passive against England, and as a result, England kind of won the gain line a little bit. That's something they can sort out. Let's move over to it in England, though. Of course, tell me what you think in the comments down below. There's your England lineup. Once again, trolling the world with our numbering system on the team sheets. Hey, England invented the sport. We can do what we want. If we want to go 15 down to 9, then 1 up to 8, whatever. No, Ben Early's not a fullback. He is a number 8 at the bottom of the list. Weirdly, this is pickling people's heads, not from England. This looks kind of normal to me because I remember even when I was playing county, regional rugby when I was a kid and you'd get the game, the team sheets, this is the format that they would take. It's always been that way. We're a bit weird in the UK. We're also trolling, see what I mean about the exhausts? Here they come. We're also trolling New Zealand by playing a child at loosehead prop. We can beat you with a kid with his lovely rosy cheeks. Finn Baxter, I mean, what a week it's been for him. Made his debut last week, played 67 minutes when he might have expected to play 17 if he was lucky. Joe Marler out, and he gets a start against New Zealand. He didn't do bad last week, did he? What a challenge for him this week. Huge. I mean, he has been used in big games for Harlequins, his club. Champions Cup quarter-final against Bordeaux. He started over Joe Marler. And he did a number on Big Ben Tamifuna. So, hey, let's see what the kid can do. But up against Tyrell Lomax, that's a big challenge. Bevan Rodd on the bench to back him up. He's played some rugby at this level, done okay. It's a massive challenge, though. Massive challenge for the pair of them. And England do have, as I keep saying, England have got issues at prop. We might be in a much better place by Saturday than we have been in recent years, but tight head prop still a massive concern, with Kola Bear becoming the second most capped English international of all time, behind Ben Youngs. So that's a bit of an accolade for him. I quite like, much like Scott Robertson, I like that Steve Borthwick is keeping a level of consistency. He's not being too reactionary in his selections. There's a smoothness and a consistency, which actually I have to say Eddie Jones did quite a lot. But that used to really annoy people because they thought Eddie Jones was just selecting irrespective of form and good performances and bad performances. And there is an argument that that's the case with England. Ben Spencer did not have his greatest game backing up Alex Mitchell at 9. And a lot of people have been asking to drop him. I quite like that Ben Spencer's having another go. Now, I am a Harry Randall man out of him and Ben Spencer. And I've said before, I would have picked Harry Randall last week. I wouldn't have been upset if I'd seen Harry Randall this week. But just because Ben Spencer wasn't quite at his best in the last 20 minutes of that game and things seemed to slow down a little bit, I'm quite happy that Ben Spencer's got another go. I do think the bench overall for England was a concern from last week and is a concern again when I look to this week. There was one comment, where is it? There was one comment, see if I can find it, I made a note of it. One guy called Patrick made a comment which I thought was really interesting. And this links in with what I'm talking about, Ben Spencer seems slower in the last 20 of a game. Now, Patrick, this is in one of the comments from a video I posted yesterday. He says, you can wax lyrical about England all you like. And this is why, please leave your comments down below because I do read them and do get involved. He says, you can wax lyrical about England all you like, and rightly so. And even talk about New Zealand's weaknesses, which there are some. But there's one thing New Zealand has that no other team in World Rugby has, including South Africa, and that's the ruthless, bloody-minded intensity of a pack of ravenous wolves chasing after their prey, an intensity which England struggled to match in the last quarter. And I thought about that, and I was tempted to sort of write it off at a second, going, nah, that's not true. All nations are trying their best and have this ravenous intensity. That it's Test match rugby. But there is a truth that New Zealand in the final quarter of games historically have always been really, really strong. So many examples of them coming back from behind to win over the years. And what is that? Is that attitude? Is that intensity? Or, and here's what I'm going to suggest, it's a complete self-belief and confidence that comes with being an All Black and all the success and history that they've had over the years. And I think the challenge, which when I think back to 2019 World Cup semi-final, the challenge that what they managed to do then, the challenge for England is to sow enough doubt in New Zealand that they start to question whether they have the ability to come back. And that's why I think possibly Ben Spencer and some of the replacements didn't play very well, because New Zealand just have this belief. And England are still a growing team. They haven't got an amazing win-loss record. It's getting better. It's been a bit mixed. But if they can start building that consistency, I think they can throw doubt into the minds of New Zealand. As for a combined 23-man squad, so if you had access to all 23 players from New Zealand, all 23 players from England, who would you select in a combined team? That's the one I've gone for. Exactly the same pack as I picked for last week. I thought George Martin for England was outstanding, but I've still gone for Scott Barrett above him. The whole New Zealand front row, but Cunningham South over Finau, who I thought was good as well. Sam Underhill over Papali'i, who I thought was good as well. It was such a well-matched pair of packs, really going head-to-head. In the back line, I've flicked things round at half-back. I've gone for Alex Mitchell over Finlay Christie. I've gone for D-Mac over Marcus Smith, which is a reversal of what I did last week. And I've reversed Rieko Ioane. Now, I think he's an outstanding rugby player. But I am starting to see what some New Zealand fans are worried about with the two of them. Although they got to a World Cup final and within 1 point of a World Cup. So, I don't know, but they are two exceptional rugby players, Barrett and Ioane. But having a out-and-out, someone who really knows that centre position, sacrificing one of them might mean you get the best out of the other one. And could Rieko Ioane be an option on the bench? I don't know. I might change my mind again after Saturday on this one, but I think that just speaks to it. Oh, I put Sevi Reece in this week's one. I think that just speaks, though, to how well balanced these two teams are. And can England overcome the 30-year wait for a win in Auckland? I'm not so sure about that. I think the front row and the replacements means that I still would edge to New Zealand. I'm going to go prediction, New Zealand 30, England 22. A win by 8 points. I really hope I'm wrong, as an Englishman, of course. And even a narrow defeat would leave me feeling quite positive as an Englishman. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Your prediction, what you think of the selections, where you think the balance of power lies, where the big battlegrounds on this match are, what's going to happen. And hit subscribe, give the video a thumbs up while you're there. I will see you on the next one.